He came to the billionaire's house for an interview, but instead of waiting in line like everyone else, he cut the queue and barged right in. Once inside, he strutted around without a care in the world, paying no attention to his appearance. Approaching the table, he slapped down a document and demanded they sign it. He bluntly stated that he wasn't after the job, but rather their rejection. Apparently, he needed to be turned down 3 times to qualify for unemployment benefits. Still, he had to go through the motions. Driss showed zero respect for the boss, hoping to get them to sign quickly so he could leave. He not only accused them of knowing nothing about music, but also claimed they had no sense of humor. However, his defiant demeanor piqued Philippe's interest. Philippe asked Driss if he had any genuine interest in the job beyond the unemployment benefits. Driss's response made Philippe burst out laughing, and at the same time, it convinced him that Driss was exactly the person he was looking for. Unlike the other applicants who were all cut from the same cloth, armed with extensive professional knowledge and able to handle any interview question with ease, Driss was a breath of fresh air. Instead of rejecting him outright, Philippe told Driss to come back the next morning to pick up the document. Driss returned home, hoping to take a shower, but his siblings' bickering made it impossible to find peace. Driss's family was poor, living in the slums of Paris. The tiny house was crammed with 7 or 8 children, making it feel incredibly cramped. To make matters worse, when he looked out the window, he realized his younger brother seemed to be involved with the gang. But deep down, he knew he had no right to lecture his brother, considering he had just been released from prison himself. That evening, his exhausted mother returned home. Seeing her son who had disappeared for 6 months, she said nothing, but it couldn't pay the rent or put food on the table. His mother asked where he had been for the past 6 months. He lied through his teeth, saying he had been on vacation. His mother was utterly disappointed in him, telling him with a blank expression that she didn't want to see him in the house anymore. But his heart ached just as much. Driss hit the streets, hanging out with his sketchy friends. But as the night grew deeper, the cold crept in, and the crowds gradually dispersed. By the time the sky began to lighten, Driss was shivering uncontrollably. He decided to leave and fetch the document. Boarding the subway to Philippe's mansion, he could finally close his eyes and rest for a bit. A short while later, he arrived at Philippe's doorstep. He had planned to grab the document and leave, but the butler opened the door and invited him in. The butler then gave him a tour of the mansion, letting him familiarize himself with the surroundings. Most people who came couldn't last more than a week. Each room here was larger than his entire home, and even the bathroom was incredibly luxurious, with a huge bathtub in the center. Driss then entered Philippe's room. Due to his quadriplegia, Philippe needed massages every day. Philippe told him the signed document was in an envelope on the small table. Driss grabbed it and was about to leave when Philippe suddenly asked him what he thought about living on welfare. Wasn't it embarrassing? Would he be willing to accept some restrictions, take on some responsibility, and work a regular job with set hours?